Hey everyone, welcome to Wellness Wednesdays with Stephanie. I am Stephanie Buckland, your host, and I am super excited and very, like, honestly, I am like over the moon right now to talk to Michelle Lamansky. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you
Hey,
for having me.
yes, I'm so excited. And the reason I'm so excited is because of everything you do, Michelle, because it is so completely in alignment with what I do. So we have like so much in common. We have so much to talk about. So I'm really excited to get into this. So we will start with an introduction. Let's let people know who you are. So, uh, give us who are you, what do you do, and what kind of magic shows up as a result?
Oh, the magic part. Okay. My name is Michelle Lamansky. I am the owner of Balanced Yoga. I'm an RYT 500, so it's a yoga teacher, trauma aware, and it's mental health aware. So it's trauma, anxiety, and depression. And I also do yoga for grief at local hospitals and also online if anyone needs it. So that's my primary focus. I do have a couple other things that I do, but mostly yoga is like where my heart is and kind of the soul of my business. So I help
Beautiful.
women. So I help women with like trauma and anxiety and depression. I help them find peace and calm in a way that allows them to show up for their family, for themselves in a way that helps them feel joyous instead of burdened. Is the hope.
So good. It's so important too. I think that women, especially, it's like we need to take care of ourselves. We need to know that we need to fill our cup and be healthy and well for everyone around us because otherwise, we're still going to show up for everyone around us, but we're going to do it from a lower capacity.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of
And
resentment starts to creep in.
right, and all of the yeah, exactly, all the feelings of inadequacy and all that. So I mean, we have so much to talk about, but I want to know why. So like, what is it that grabbed your attention and pulled you into this industry? Because being in woo woo is a weird energy, a weird place to be for sure. We talked about that before. I am all woo woo, yes.
I love it.
um the why. What is it that got you into this? What pulled you in, and why is it so important to you?
Well, I would say my first yoga class was a terrible experience. I was in my early 20s and I went to like a gym and I just went because the class was at the right time. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll try yoga. And it was a really hard yoga class. I had no idea what I was doing. I was in a room, I was, of course, late. I was in a room with a bunch of women who knew exactly what they were doing and had clearly been doing this for like years. And I was, because I was late, I was in the first row. So I was like, a room packed full of people, front row. And I'm talking like if you've ever been in a yoga class where you're like almost elbow to elbow, like the mats are like, a couple inches apart. It was a really crowded class, and everyone's just flowing through these vinyasas and these chaturangas like they're not hard. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I was struggling, and everybody was just breathing and peaceful. And I just remember being so annoyed that they had the audacity to be breathing and peaceful while they were doing these really hard poses. So I was like, I'm never going to yoga again. This is not going to happen. This is not for me, And I just swore it off for at least a year. And a year or so later, a friend of mine was taking yoga, and she was like, "Hey, you should come try this." And I was like, "Oh no, 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 it's not my. We're not gonna." But she was like, "No, no,
Been there,
like if
done
you,
that.
yeah." She was like, "No, if you come, like I get a free class, and you don't have to pay anything. Just come do this so I can get a free class." And I was like, "All right, fine." Because we're like young 20s, right? Nobody has any money. So I went to that class, and it was an incredibly slow, gentle, like class that felt like a hug, right? And I just remember thinking I had no idea I needed this. So it was such a beautiful experience, and I didn't know why. I didn't know why I needed it. I didn't know what it was at that time that made me feel so calm. Of course now I know, with all the trainings I understand why it worked, but I didn't know why it worked. I just knew it worked. I loved that they would remind me to breathe. I felt like it was a whole hour where someone was reminding me to breathe in and breathe out for, the time that I was there. I didn't realize at the time that I was holding my breath. And I hear that a lot as a yoga
Yeah.
teacher. I think a lot of the yoga teachers hear that, but there's so many of us that you don't realize that you're not breathing fully. And it's so funny that your breath is this the only function in your body that is both automatic and can be controlled. And it has the ability to influence so many other things in the body. So I knew from probably that first year that I did yoga that I had like a calling that I knew that in some capacity I wanted to start teaching at some point. It was probably 15 years before I got certified though. So, and that was, I don't know, 24 years ago. I don't know all the math is. So it's been a hot minute, but I had all of these like honestly body issues. I thought I wasn't skinny enough to be a yoga teacher. I thought you had to be like long and lean and super strong and super flexible. And I finally like turned 40 and was like, if I'm not there now, I'm not getting there. I'm just gonna do this. You know, the older you get, you just don't care as much. So I got my yoga teacher certification and I went ahead and got the trauma certification shortly after and then proceeded to go to the 500 because I really felt like there's a place for this that is more than just a yoga class, if that makes sense. I felt like there's a
Yes.
place for yoga in a more healing capacity as opposed to just, okay, let's work out, you know.
Yes. Oh, totally, totally. I think that that is really what brought me into yoga practice. I had no idea what yoga was. I had no idea that it could be so healing. My very first yoga session was in my living room. I was watching Fit TV and I had actually recorded 6 sessions on Fit TV. So I'd been watching it, but not practicing for almost like 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, Miss Buckland, if you're going to do this, you better just do it. Just try it. It's not going to hurt. You just get on the floor and do some moves. It's going to just try this. Like, okay. So it was interesting doing it by myself because, and not having anybody fix my form, not having a teacher there, it was me by myself on the floor on the carpet
Yeah.
and, you know, and I started the session very apprehensively. I ended the session in Shavasana and I was like, oh my God. I checked in with my body and I had started the practice at like a level 8 on a scale of 1 to 10 with pain. By the time I got to the end of the practice, I was at a 2. My pain was like almost gone. And I thought, I just found my cure. This is amazing. I have
That's
to know. I have to understand this. I want to understand yoga. I wanted to practice. So it took me on this very long journey. I was 26 at the time. I'm going to be 50 next month, this month. Oh my God, in 20 days, 21
Oh my,
days.
congratulations. Look at you. 50 and
So,
fabulous.
right. So yoga was my answer for a really long time. And I get that. It's like our bodies are calling not just for movement. Our bodies want the breath. Our bodies want us to understand that we need the breath to be more successful in everything we do,
Absolutely. It's so
and
nourishing.
oh, so nourishing. And like when we talk about things like stress management, one of the first keys is to get a hold of your breath, to learn how to do the breathing
Absolutely.
practices and get into your body. And I think that that is a fantastic place for us to start because, you know, stress is pervasive. Stress is everywhere. We hold stress. We hold little stress balls, little like energy balls of stress in our bodies and don't even know that we're holding them,
Yeah, it's
you
been
know?
there so long. It's normal.
Right?
It becomes
Right?
normal.
You've got like low back pain. That could be with you from like age 6.
Yeah,
And
years.
it's just there. It's just holding tension for no reason
Mhm.
whatsoever. And if you don't have a practice to move, if you don't exercise regularly, then that tension pattern just grows and it stays with you.
Yeah.
And by the time you get into your 30s, yeah, that's when stuff starts to get painful and it
Yep.
starts to cause problems.
It all catches
Maybe
up
it's
to
gonna,
you.
right? So your back will go out, or you'll feel like I can't move because my back hurts so much, but that tension's been there for a really long time. It's about time
Yeah.
that you paid attention, you know?
Well, unfortunately, yeah, I feel like our bodies are designed that they try to tell us, right, with the back pain, and then we ignore it. And then
right?
it's like, nope, you can't ignore this anymore. I'm
Oh, I don't
gonna
have time for
not work
that.
anymore, right? Um, so yeah, I think eventually your
Yeah,
body will force you to pay attention to it.
definitely. Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about yoga being, giving us access to healing because Western society, we are so focused on the physical. We don't remember, at least we haven't historically. I think this is becoming a lot more prevalent now that we're more trauma informed, we're more mental health informed, we're paying more attention to stress, we're more present to mental stuff, which is fantastic. This is a process, right?
Mhm.
Yay, we know kinesiology, we know how to move, we know how to heal our bodies. However, if we forget about the mental stuff, we forget like a whole aspect of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think, you're saying people are becoming more and more aware of the effects of like chronic stress and things like that. I think even though we're becoming more aware, I think the stress is more intense than it
Yeah.
was, say, even 50 years ago, just because of
Oh, big
the
time.
constant exposure to information and us having to constantly process that information. Yeah, the phones, exactly. It's the phones and just the constant. I think I don't remember the stats, but there's some crazy statistic on the amount of information we take in per day being comparable to what somebody would take in a lifetime 500 years ago. So it's just, I think our bodies are just not designed to process that much emotion and in a way that's healthy, so you have to
Yeah.
be really active, or really intentional, really, about checking on your body and your mind and seeing if you're in a good place.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, we talked about this concept of the calm contagion and understanding our dysregulation, but also understanding that we have an effect on other people around us and that we can affect people positively with
Yeah,
our own calm energy versus our dysregulation. And I mean, what you said in there was like, yeah, you can also dysregulate the people around you. And I'm like,
absolutely.
yeah, of course you
Yeah,
can. I mean, most of us are empaths and don't know it because we're affected by energy.
because we're
I
social
mean, we all
beings,
have,
us. Yeah.
right, right. And we need other people. We need the mirrors around us, you know.
Right.
So the more that we really move into this awareness, I think that it really makes a difference in how your body responds and how your mind responds to stress. The awareness is like the key, but then what are the tools? So let's get into the tools.
Yeah, I think quieting the mind is one of the most important things. And to be clear, quieting is not like you're erasing all your thoughts, like we're not going to there. You're just
Mhm,
becoming
mhm,
observant. So it goes from reacting, which is very easy to get stuck in, right? A lot of us are stuck in fight and flight, and we either don't know it or we don't know how to get out, right? It's just become almost like a lifestyle or, sometimes who we
mhm.
are. And I think trying to get out of that is not necessarily difficult. It just takes some intentionality. So the intentional ability to stop and set your phone down for 2 minutes straight in silence. Can you sit in silence for 2 minutes and just notice your breath and notice what's happening in the body? Is the breath shallow? Are you able to elongate it? Are you able to pull the breath in deeper? We my kids call this like jump scaring, when you jump out, from behind a door, and you have that sensation where you're like, and so you breathe into this little notch between the collarbone, right? It's very shallow breath.
Mhm.
So you take these really, a lot of us, when we're stuck in fight or flight, we're breathing and it's only coming this
Here.
deep. It's only
Yeah.
coming to here. So there's kind of these three ways that we breathe in yoga. So the full yogic breath, you pull in past this collarbone into the lungs and then expanding the diaphragm, expanding the belly. A lot of us, if we're stuck up here, that can affect everything from our reaction when someone jumps out from behind a door to the way we react to information that we maybe don't love, to yelling at spouses or kids or um, coworkers, right? And then there's this ripple effect that happens, right? Where if you're yelling at significant others or children or coworkers, then there's like this energy that comes from you that then ripples to their family and their coworkers, right? Or just the different things that can come with that, right? When that happens, sometimes there's feelings of embarrassment or shame that come after that, that can be
Yeah,
really heavy. And so if we can develop a short, I always say consistency, like I'd rather somebody do something 2 minutes a day than 1 hour a week, if that makes sense, because the consistency
definitely.
is so much more
Yeah,
important for taking you out of these stressful states, these stressful mindsets, and allowing you to face your day with more ease, more softness. I always say my goal, and even though I've been practicing yoga a very long time, I'm not here yet, but my goal is to have so much peace that I can always have peace to share, right? Like have so much
yeah,
calm and so much peace that I can always have that to share.
that's beautiful.
Goals.
I think, well, and that speaks volumes to the effect that we can have on other people, and just the awareness of, I know. Um, there was a time I was somewhere in my 20s that I realized that my negative attitude was affecting my coworkers. And I made a concerted effort to change that. This was before yoga. This was before, even understanding what yoga was. And I thought, okay, there's this thing called aversion therapy. I put a rubber band around my wrist. And every time I had a
Love it.
negative thought, I snapped the rubber band. And I did this for about a year and a half. It was on my wrist. And a year and a half later, I was no longer in that place of negative thought patterns. I taught my brain to be more positive.
Yeah,
And
you
it's been
literally rewired your
amazing.
brain.
I did. And
That's
I
you can
taught
do that.
myself exactly. So this neuro-linguistic programming, or
Yeah.
yeah. Um, the idea of having practices that can pull us out of our stress, having practices that can pull us out of that reactivity, I think is huge for people,
Agree.
because like, okay, so the breath is a huge one.
Mhm.
Observing your thoughts is another one that you mentioned. Let's talk a little bit more about chronic stress, because like when you get into a habit of stress where it is like your day to day, it's
Mhm.
I wake up in the morning and the first thing I do is check my phone, and the first thing that I feel is stress. And that energy just permeates through the day. How do you change those patterns? What would you suggest for that kind of person? Because I know a lot of people do this.
I would say, unfortunately, nothing happens by accident. So if you keep doing the same thing's going to keep happening. The same feelings will keep coming up. And I know that's kind of like not nice, but unfortunately, I do believe it's true. The we talked about the breath and things like that, but there's really like every breath is going to be crucial really for everyone, but there are other
Okay.
things you can do that are going to work differently for different people. So some people, I'm not a morning person. Like I hate mornings like so much. I do not like mornings, but I love my sleep. But I wake up early because if I don't have a few minutes of solitude and to just sip my tea, and I sit outside if the weather is even kind of decent, I wrap myself in blankets in the winter, or if it's hot, I just sit out there and sweat. I listen to the birds, I look at the trees, I feel the air, and I sip my whatever drink I'm drinking. And that time without my phone, that time is always really, really helpful in getting me through the day. But that may not work for everybody. So, if you've got a job that starts at a really early morning, maybe that's not working. Maybe it's whatever. So there's various reasons that's not going to work for other people. So some people prefer music. So maybe they want binaural beats or just some soft meditation music. Maybe people want to meditate for 5 minutes. That's my go-to. Like if it's nasty cold or just disgustingly hot or rainy, I will do a meditation by the window instead. Um, there's always yoga. Even like 5 minutes of yoga is a beautiful practice. I think the interesting
Yep,
thing is that what all of these, you can go for a walk, that one works. I think the interesting
sure.
thing is that all of the things, what everything has in common is there is no device. So that is like a crucial point. And we are all addicted to our phones. I get it. But being able to intentionally say, I am not going to be on my phone for the next
Disconnect. Yeah,
even 2 minutes is hugely helpful. And then you can even work it into your daily activities, right? I think a lot of us have heard of the practice of like washing dishes mindfully, where you feel the bubbles and you feel the water and you feel the texture of the dish and the sponge and like what do you see, what do you feel, what do you smell, what do you hear when you hear the water, right?
definitely.
um,
Yeah,
so engage anything that will engage the senses. So yoga will engage your feelings, right? You can feel what's happening in the body, you can feel the mat, you can feel your muscles. um, Journaling, so there's all these different ways and you have to just kind of pick what works for you. For me, journaling, I totally recognize the benefits, but I kind of don't like to do it, so it's not my go-to. um, so it's just whatever works for you. And that's the beauty, is there's so many options. You can just kind of pick and choose and just make that one little habit, like find one little thing that you enjoy and see if you can incorporate it daily. And then bonus points if you have a backup for when, like me, I can't go outside. If you go for a walk every day, maybe you have a treadmill and you can walk on the treadmill on the days where it's gross out, things like that. Like having a backup plan will keep you from
yeah.
breaking the habit, right? Because a lot of times we miss 3 days and then you're like, oh, what's the point? Or you've just fallen out of the habit and you
Right.
don't go
Yeah.
back to it. Right.
Right.
So I also think having the backup plan, which is like, this is what I do on the days that the weather's bad or I'm out of, you know, your favorite lotion. Like lotion's another thing, right? I put on lavender lotion before I go to bed every night, and that smell just kind of like helps me calm down. It kind of signals to me that it's bedtime. So it's a lot of
Yeah,
little mindful things you can do like that.
for sure. Yeah. I talk to people about having certain rituals and practices in place. So I appreciate that. It's interesting that we that tendency to just say screw it. Okay, I missed a few days, never mind, I'm done. I'm not going to do it anymore. Or like it's not worth it, or like we'll convince ourselves that it's just not worth the time, but we don't. When we first started the process of choosing this practice, there was a reason for it.
Mhm.
So I think that one of the biggest reasons that people fall off the wagon is they forget their why. They forget the why. Why did I
Absolutely.
choose to
Yeah.
bring these practices into my day to day? And what is it about my life that needs these practices? And so maybe just some really good like self introspection about it. Why do you do these things? Why are these practices important to you? And what is it about your day-to-day life that requires you to do these things? So what are the symptoms, the pain points that are pointing to these are why you need these things? Because if you know those things about yourself and you fall off the wagon for 3 days, then you just have to go back to your journal and say, oh, right, I'm doing it for these reasons. So it's
Yeah.
almost like
That's a
a
great idea.
reminder. So I
Yeah.
have a fitness notebook. It's a basically a wellness notebook, and I put my whys as the very first thing I did. And then I have those whys have changed, so after, 10 years of doing yoga practice, my whys of why I practice change. Why I don't practice. I mentioned that before we hit
Yeah.
record. Um, I understand now more than ever that my stress level and my pain level are interconnected. The
Yeah.
more stressed I am, the more painful my body is.
That's, I think, true for so many people. And I'm not sure everybody puts all that together, so I'm proud of you for that, for what it's worth. I think some of the other symptoms that, people could look for with chronic stress or, overwhelm, I think overwhelm too is a reason that people kind of fall off the wagon, if you will. But you tend to have like hypoarousal, which is, or hyper, either. You could have either. So hyper
Mhm.
arousal is just where you're like constantly on edge and constantly alert. Like you are constantly on edge, like ready to snap at anyone if they do something
Right.
that doesn't really work for you or maybe is kind of out of your control or unexpected. And then there's this constant feeling of like waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Or even if we're in a really nice state, right? If we're in a state where things are happy, it's almost like you don't trust it. Right. So
Mhm.
that's one of the symptoms. Um, I think. then hyper arousal is just where you kind of go numb, right? You don't want to participate, you disassociate. Maybe it feels like you're looking at life from the outside, feelings of depression
Right.
and things like that. And then some of the more subtle symptoms that I think it's really easy to brush off are going to be things like fatigue or anxiety and worry, because you just think like, oh, I'm just a worrier. Everybody worries. I definitely lived in that space for a long time. Brain fog, you can have like digestive issues, anxiety, sleep issues. I feel like sleep issues, like if I
Oh,
can't
big
sleep,
time.
I'm a little cranky if I can't sleep. So then
Yeah,
we go into that
I
contagion.
miss exactly. I miss 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and my body is so tired that I really don't want to participate in anything.
Yeah,
So I don't show up in the same way. My energy is different. I'm now I'm now dysregulated, and I'm bringing that with me when I go places. So
right.
yeah, sleep is huge. I'm working on a blog right now about different aspects of hygiene and how you can have
Interesting.
emotional hygiene, you can have spiritual hygiene, you can have energetic hygiene, physical hygiene, and having these practices in place that are about self-care, but really about like self-awareness and really understanding that you have an effect on the people around you. You can't really help it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not something that you have control over unless you're intentional. Then it changes.
Yeah. Yeah, you do have control over it. Yeah, you're right though. If you're it's easy to neglect. For sure.
Yes.
For
Right,
sure.
right.
It's
And
easy
people
to.
just bump around in life and expect everyone around them to fix the problems, and yet they're the problem. So there's this energy
Times.
of uh like it's everybody around me, it's not me. And how is that
Yeah.
even possible? Do you understand that you have energy? Do you understand that you have capacities that are maybe beyond what you can produce right now
Yeah.
because of
I
your
think that's one
stress
of the
level or your sleep
beautiful
pattern?
I think that's one of the beautiful things about yoga is it really encourages introspection so that you can just take
Yeah.
that minute to explore your thoughts. What are they? Because if we're going, you don't have time to explore what's in your head. All that you're getting, all that you're pulling from your head is what is my next thing to do, right? We're kind of become a slave to the to-do list. If you don't have time to stop and look inward, we don't have time to inventory how is our behavior, what is our part in this negative situation that maybe we've created, right? So I think the ability to constantly and it doesn't start constant, right? Like you don't solve everything in your first yoga class, but you start to calm down enough to maybe to feel what's happening in your body, because I feel like that's the first step, right? The first
Yeah.
step, you got to calm down enough to feel what's happening in your body, because a lot of times we don't. You have back pain or you have ankle pain or whatever pains we have, you just push through it, right? Because you've got to get to the next to do. And then when you're able to come to that moment of stillness and be like, oh, wait a minute, this actually doesn't feel good, or it's hurting when I do this certain move, right? You are able to kind of identify exactly where the problem is, not only physically, but once you get past identifying the physical issues, you start to have the opportunity to look at the behavior, at your own behavior, and see what part you're playing in the situation you find yourself in life, right?
Yeah, totally. Totally. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like I think, oh, so many people need to hear these things. Okay. Hmm. Let's talk a little bit about survival mode. So, there are people in this world that, unfortunately, based on reality, based on where we are in the economy or in, the political system right now, or in I, the economy, it's crazy how the economy affects us. Um, Survival mode is something I'm intimately aware of because I was homeless for about a year, and the experience of survival mode is still with me, even though I'm not homeless. So
Yeah,
like that energy just kind of pervades, it stays. Survival mode is, I think, a natural instinct. I think that human
absolutely.
beings
Yeah, that's
have this
fast.
instinct of survival. And so we will make do with whatever situations we're in because our bodies need to be we need to have homeostasis. We need
Hmm.
to have balance in our bodies in order to like stay alive, right? So our bodies require homeostasis. So we do everything in our power to stay in balance, even though that balance might be completely dysregulated. So, right? So then survival mode becomes a very unhealthy lifestyle practice. It becomes I'm living in lack. I'm always in stress, so fight or flight constantly. I'm always feeling like the other shoe is going to drop because it always
Yeah,
does because survival mode
because
basically
it
means you're
has.
not
Yes.
right. You're consistently feeling that, feeling pressure and all of that. There's shame attached to it. There's the energy of guilt attached to it. There's the energy of fear, big time attached to that, you know. And so like these are trauma responses. A lot of times we end up in survival because of a bad situation that we needed to get out of, or a bad situation we're in that we need to survive.
And I think that's an important, that's an important function of the body, right? The fact that
Yes.
you're stuck in the fact that people get stuck in fight or flight or survival mode is indicative that your protective mechanisms in your body are working as they should, right? You sense a threat, your body will raise your cortisol and it will raise your adrenaline, and those will protect you ideally from a short-term threat, right? And then what happens when you have something like what you experienced? I'm sure that wasn't a 30-minute ordeal,
It
right?
was it was
Yeah,
a whole
so
year. Yeah.
yeah, so you were probably no doubt and with reason stuck in survival mode because I'm sure there were a lot of challenges associated with that you had to face on a regular basis, right? It didn't go away. There was no time where you were just like, okay, cool, I can chill now, right? And so then once you're there for an hour, or I'm sorry, for a year, once you're there for a year, it becomes difficult to get out of that because it's a habit. It's a habit that your body has created, even if your mind wants to get out of that. But
Exactly. So now all of these years later, I'm here. I'm in a safe place. I have residence. I have my own room. I have my bed. I have all the things. And yet I still have the fear. I still have that underlying, like, okay, yeah, but when is this going to end? Or is this going to be, is
yeah,
this going
so
to be a repeat of the past?
in
So the fear of repetition.
in trauma yoga, we believe that that's like a lot of that lives in your fascia, and I think other
Yes.
practices as well, right? But that's living in your fascia still, right? Our fascia has this weird memory, and it also can lend itself to tension. So we have like the fascia surrounds the muscles, and it tends to get like very stressed out. It gets very tight as a protective mechanism, right? Because
Yes.
like if you think you're about to get in a fight, you're going to tense your muscles to either run or to get in a fight, right? So then
Sure.
your muscles, your fascia has tensed up, and if you don't actively release that, then it gets stuck there, and you still
Pattern.
have those feelings. And that, whereas taking a deep breath or doing a short meditation and things like that can temporarily take you out of fight or flight mode, working on the fascia for usually longer periods of time. It depends on like the level of trauma, right? It's different for everyone, but working on the fascia is something that will not happen in one class, but over time you will start to trust that you can relax and trust that you are safe where you are right now. There
Right.
also, I would recommend some meditations on that as well, as far as helping to remind yourself that you're safe, and for anyone else who's dealing with something similar.
Yeah, I think that that's been part of my journey, honestly, as a healer, is to be really, really vulnerable and honest about my experience and everything that has led me into the practices that I have today that keep me safe, sound, healthy, awake. Um, so I love this. You're safe where you are right now. I just wrote it down.
Yeah.
A new
Say,
mantra.
I am safe. I am safe. That is what you
I
say.
am safe where I
Here,
am
I'm gonna
right
show
now.
you.
I am
You're gonna
safe.
take your right hand under your armpit. It's weird. And then give
Okay.
yourself a hug and look down. Breathe deep. I am safe.
I am safe.
Thank you for you can do that like 3 times in a row and it really um like over and over and over, right? But it can
Yeah,
be really helpful. Thank you for participating, by the way.
absolutely. Well, and I'm feeling it. I woke up in stress this morning, so that story I told you was me. I'm in that energy, and I think that what's really great about this conversation is it's a reminder that I have control of this and that I can get back out of it, and that I have
Yeah.
practices in place that I can
It,
use. I mean, this is very relevant to exactly what I'm experiencing today. So, yay
well,
for
and
that.
I think that's such a testament, because it sounds like you work in a similar space from to me. And so like you know the tools, but I feel like in every yoga class that I go to that's led by someone else, like there's a constant it's you still need the reminders. I still appreciate the reminders, even though I know. I still appreciate the reminders from other yoga teachers or other practitioners who are reminding me to breathe deeply or repeat a mantra or meditate, lead those. It's still valuable to hear certain things over and over and over and over and over again. Even though
Yes, I
I've been
totally
listening to
agree.
them for 20 years, I still am like, oh, I'm really glad she said that. Even though I have a one teacher, she says some of the same stuff every week. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful that she says those every week because it's very helpful every time.
It is. It is. And I think, man, this has been such a lovely conversation. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. I'm glad you're liking it.
Yeah,
I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
yeah. I mean, it's so relevant to exactly what everyone is experiencing right now. There's so many people that are in survival mode. There's so many people that are in chronic stress. There's so many people that are in these experiences. And anything that we can do to help to pull you out of those negative energies, those negative experiences, even for 5 minutes, but recommending that there is going to be a process, that you will need to do some work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
We need to do inner work. Yes,
Yeah.
we need to do the work to move us through the experience of stress so that we can achieve calm.
Yeah. I had a friend recently ask, she was like, so what is the secret? She's being kind of sarcastic. And I was like, the secret is there is no secret. Like you're not gonna like take a pill and it's fixed. That's not how it works. And you're not gonna take one yoga class and it's done. It's a journey. And at some point you're gonna fall off the wagon and you're gonna get back on the wagon and you're gonna forgive yourself for the mistakes that you made and you're gonna keep going and it's gonna get better and better and better and better and like incrementally. So,
Exactly. I think that's amazing. Well, thank you. Okay, now, is there anything else that we did not cover that you'd like to talk about today, Michelle?
do you want to know how trauma aware yoga is different?
Oh, yeah. Let's talk about that.
Okay, I get that question a lot. So I just some of the things that we do in trauma aware yoga that I always say if I'm doing my job right, you will not notice. Um, but we don't use straps. That's the most noticeable thing. There's no loud noises. We don't move quickly. So like a vinyasa flow class is not it's not really.
Trauma
We're
aware.
not
Okay.
doing that, right? Unless it's an advanced group of yogis that have been doing trauma aware for a while. Um, we would do longer holds to try to get into the fascia and release some of that stored tension and stored trauma. And
Mhm.
we do a lot of things that are like swaying movements. So we may be standing and swaying. We'd be like hanging upside down and like a forward fold or something, like a wide forward fold, and just grabbing the elbows and swaying. And that actually goes back to the swaying movements that we feel in the womb. They're very soothing.
Mm,
We do like humming. When you hum, you activate the vagus nerve, can have an instant calming effect. And there's generally not touching, like there's no manual corrections. Or if I do ever have to use them because I feel like, somebody's just really got it wrong or they're maybe going to hurt themselves, I would always, always, always ask permission. So those are
yes.
like the main things.
Awesome. Okay. I completely understand the swaying thing, connecting to the
Yeah.
womb.
It's a really beautiful feeling. Like very
It's amazing.
calming.
It's amazing how we have like muscle memories of things that we really shouldn't remember, you know?
Mhm,
And yet there is memory, even though we don't consciously remember things. I think that there's always memory.
mhm.
That's why the
Your
Akashic
cells,
records make
probably
so much
do your
sense.
cells remember it? I'm honestly not sure on the science of that one, but it feels like maybe there's some cell memory in there. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on
Yeah.
that. It feels right, but I'm not sure for.
Well, no, it makes sense. Like my body said yes, you know? My body
Yeah.
was like, yeah, yeah. Oh man. Okay. Okay. So let's see. So you are in Collierville, Tennessee, right?
I am. So it's right outside
Do you
Memphis.
have do you have a physical location that you practice out of?
No, I work from homes. I work with a local hospital here. I have a few things around town, and then I do privates, and then I have an online presence. So I have online courses, and I am actually about to launch a course on focus, like for focus and anxiety. So if you maybe flirt a little bit with ADHD, we're going to focus on yoga that can help with focus. We are not going to have a ton of stillness because I know a lot of us with ADHD don't really love that. And definitely, there's going to be a lot of focus on helping with anxiety and just some gentle movements and trying to build a community here. So that's what I have going. I have lots of freebies on my website. If you want to go check those out, I have free practices, free meditations that you can download, a couple of PDFs there. It's www.balancedyogatn, like Tennessee, balancedyogatn.com. So
Perfect. And that link will be in the description below as well. And so how do you prefer people to reach out to you? Through the website?
I'm on all the socials. It's Balanced Yoga TN on Instagram and Facebook. TikTok is balanced.yoga. And I'm on the other ones, but don't worry about those. I'm not as active on the other ones. Probably the website would be the best place to start. You can reach out to me there. I have just a contact section, or you can request a freebie. You can just ask to be on my email list or send me an email. If you ever need to know what yoga class, if you ever need to know what yoga class you should start with, I am happy to answer that question. Shoot me an email and I will guide you in the right direction.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Okay. Well, let's see. So we've got that covered. Now, my last question for you, Michelle, this is the last question I ask everyone, is what kind of inspiration would you like to share with our audience today? Anything that you'd like to leave people with?
Hmm. That's a lot. I wasn't expecting that. Um, I think remembering that peace is not found externally. So if you're depending on other people's behavior for your sense of peace, for your sense of calm, it will always be inconsistent because people are gonna people. That's not their fault. They're just being human. Peace will always come from within, and that is the only place it comes from with any kind of consistency. So
Mm,
learn to look inward and face that quiet. Sometimes it can be very uneasy at first to hear your own thoughts and hear your quiet, and kind of some things may come up that you're a little uneasy with, but it is worth it, and push through so that you can see the rewards on the other side.
mm, nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Well, my dear, I think that this has been a very important conversation, and I think a lot of people uh will have a great experience having
I hope
experienced
so.
this
I hope we
conversation.
learned.
So thank you. Yes.
We're
Yes,
inspired.
definitely. Awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle. Have a wonderful day. Namaste.
Namaste.